With game update 1.0.5 comes a new Descendant, Luna, who focuses on buffing her team's damage, regenerating MP, as well as giving cooldown reduction. In this video, I posted timestamps. Feel free to jump to a particular section that interests you. I'll be going over her kit, what cards I used to build her in a supporting machine, and then I'll go into a bit more of a deep dive into why I chose those particular cards. Some alternative builds you can run, and finally some gameplay to showcase everything together, as well as some final thoughts on the Descendant overall. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, I want to go over Luna's passive real quick because it's sort of pivotal with all of Luna's other abilities. So her passive is when using a skill to hit a note, inspiration gauge goes up. When the inspiration gauge max out, enhanced skill can be used. Using enhanced skill completely depletes inspiration gauge. However, when failing to hit the note, inspiration gauge goes down and the skill fails to activate. While out of combat for a certain period of time, inspiration gauge is completely depleted. So basically, in summary, we have a meter that we have to fill up when using abilities, and then when you are at max, you can then have a buffed version of that skill. So now we're in the range now, and let's go over the first ability. Because when you first ability, you bring out your special weapon, and you can see there are notes that are coming out. If you can time your shots, you can start dealing damage and building up a bar on the left. As you can see, I'm getting a counter going up. And so this is your basic, this is your primary way of doing damage. What's fun about this is that if I notice, I'm sort of aiming down, but it has a bit of tracking. If you notice, there's like a tracker to it. And my bullets are going off. So once I'm done with all those bullets, I can no longer do damage with that. I had to wait for a cooldown. Now the way to get more bullets, so we're at 32. Let's say I'm shooting, going down. I can then pop my second ability, and it regens 10 energy or bullets. And then if I want to regen again, I do my next ability. So that's how you regen, and basically if you can balance between the abilities, you basically have unlimited ammo in a sense, and dealing damage and all that fun stuff. So that is the basic, and it takes a little bit getting used to trying to time those notes, but just practice making sure that you can hit, there's a pause, hit, and then if you want to do ability, you have to do it within sync, because if you go out of sync, it cancels like that. Or if I shoot, you hear that sound, and my MP goes down. So if I'm just going like this, yeah. So you want to make sure you're keeping in rhythm with it, and just doing visual versus auditory, I find is a little bit easier. Now that we have a general idea of the first ability, let's go over the buffs. So starting off with the second ability, which is my C, which is the ability power buff, and this is distinguished by the red circle around us. That just gives ability power increase, which is very helpful for those high damage dealing glaze and out there. Now the third ability, or my V, is going to be the mana regen, or MP power regeneration. This is good for bunnies, because if they're in my circle, they're constantly getting mana regen, so they can constantly be running around. And then the last one in our list is the Z, or the fourth ability, which is a cooldown reduction, which is distinguished by purple. And this is helpful for just overall if you need to give people some cooldowns, and just so they can spam abilities a little bit quicker. So you'll be juggling between these three different buffs. Now, what's important is that if you notice the gauge at the bottom, what we talked about, our passive, is going up. So if we're successful with hitting the notes with our abilities, you see their gauge at the bottom is growing. And if you build this up enough, you'll get to max. And instead of just jumping between our second and third ability, which works, but it can be a little bit tedious, what you could do is pop your fourth ability and then start hitting enemies. If you notice, every time we are successful with a hit, that bar gets regenerated much faster. So usually you want to pop all three abilities and leaving the fourth one last so you can get your full meter. And then what you can do is choose, okay, I want to give the team a full power boost ×2. So I go that, and she does a new animation. Now this one is a 2x buff for damage, and you can do the same thing with the mana regen. So let's go ahead and wait for my 4th ability to regen. So I'll just wait. I'll jump between the 2nd abilities and 3rd ability while we wait for the 4th one to get off cooldown. So now we do this. We can then start shooting enemies, get that bar up, and now we're going to give people a mana boost. Boom. She does a new animation right there. And now we are doing twice as much mana regen as we did if we did with our first tier 1 version of our mana regen. Now you're wondering, what does the purple one buff do? So we'll wait for our cooldowns in a second. We'll just jump between our 2nd and 3rd ability while we wait. And having high cooldown reduction is very nice, but it's not really required because she has very good cooldown in general. So we'll go ahead, and what we'll do is we'll just go through this without buffing with our 4th ability, just so we don't have to wait for cooldown. So it might take a little bit here, but cooldowns are not that bad. Just a little bit more. One more, and then we'll buff with our 4th ability, or the purple. So here we go. Boom. So now with this one is you can get twice as much energy. If you notice, I'm getting 2 per shot, and then I can buff much quicker. So it depends on how you want to do your rotation, like that. So that is the abilities overview. Now that we have gone over the skills, let's go ahead and work on the build to make her a supporting machine. So to start off with the cars, we're going to increase HP over here, as well as use Iron Defense for just increasing defense, and skill power. So this will help with those buffs just being a little bit more potent. We're also using Battle Stamina, which will increase our max HP, as well as our skill duration, which is again just keeping those buffs on our allies a little bit longer. Now we're going to be working on making sure that Circle is going to be expanded and be able to reach allies at longer distances of us having to run up to them. So we're going to be using skill expansion, which is just give us almost 100 range, amplification control, which is the effective range, but also give us some nice shields. And then we're going to be using Frugal Mind as well, which will reduce our cost, so we don't have to use that MP bar as much, but then also give us more range. Now, if you notice, Luna is a non-attributed character, so that means she's not a fire-based character or electric-based. So I'm going to be using the focus on non-attribute, mainly just to boost that power more, but also give us more cooldown, which is helpful. And since we're using these 3 abilities right here, if you notice, these are singular abilities. So I'm going to be focused on singular, which is just going to help buff those abilities, but also give us more cooldown. And then the last one, Safe Recovery, which gives us heals on pickup, but then also reduces the incoming damage at us. So if we're trying to res our friends, we're not going to get one tapped and all that. Multi-maneuvering, but that's a personal preference to you. And then I'm going to slap on this last mod, which is Nimble Footsteps. And this will change the passive, you notice right here. So what happens is when I give a buff to an ally, it increases the range and also my movement speed. So it's very helpful in that regard there. So now onto the reactor. I have a purple one currently. Is a tech skill because Luna's attack-based skill is tech-based, so that's just going to be helpful for damage output. Skill cost, but also skill duration up, just more buffs duration. I'm using 2 Tomb Vanguard auxiliary power just so I can have that defense modifier right here. And then I'm using 2 times Annihilation Sensors, which gives us skill duration, which means more buffs to the friends and all that. So that is the build. I'm going to be jumping into a little bit more detail on why I chose which ones. So if you don't really care for that, I appreciate you watching. And if you can, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more before you leave. Now that we have a base build for Luna, let's go ahead and dive into why I chose these particular mods. So if we go back into the skills for the second and third abilities, if you notice under exciting sound, it says skill power increase is max MP. And for this one, relaxing sound, MP recovery amount is max MP times a percentage. Since these two are the main abilities we're going to be swapping to, we're going to need to have a larger MP pool. And I'll be showing a video, one that has no MP pool for Luna, and then a very high MP pool. If you notice, the MP regeneration for this bunny is much higher with a higher MP pool. So the reason I'm doing the MP accelerant is so I can get my max MP. And then right here, I have max HP, but then for this sensor here, I have max MP. So if you want to start building max MP to be more effective. And right here, skill cost, skill duration, very nice to have. Max HP, fire resist, I could probably find a better one, but that's the best one I can have. And then this one I probably need to change, but max MP is very nice to have. And the MP recovery in combat, that's also helpful as well. As for weapons, you really don't need her because you just mainly be using her skills. So weapons are pretty much not important for this build right here. Now let's take a look at some alternate builds for Luna. Let's go over to my DPS loadout. Pretty much everything is the same with the skill extension for my duration, HP, battle stamina, iron defense. But if you notice, there's this red one where it says tech skill power modification. If we're going into a more DPS focused role, we're going to be focusing on our first ability. And this one is non-attribute plus tech ability. So we have a non-attribute, but also we have tech. So you might need to change this mod to the this one, the symbol right here. Saving and recovery, amplification, those are pretty much the same. I swapped out for defense just to help out. MP accelerant, you know, pretty much all of the same except for the tech, as well as more defense for that, for more damage. And you will also want to have the damage mod that comes with Luna, but you have to defeat Gluttony for this one. But it's the noise surge. When using skills, deals damage to nearby enemies, but does not buff allies. Grants a stackable buff to Luna that is enhanced with each stack. So you have to fight the latest hard mode boss for this one at the time of this recording, but I don't have it, as you can see right there. Now here's one thing I found out while doing some interesting testing, is of this potent collector. And it says when defeating an enemy, instantly recovers 12.2 of custom resources at a 9.8 chance. Characters with custom resources, Ajax, Bunny, Glay, and Kyle. Now if you may have noticed, Luna has a custom resource, and yes, it does actually work with her. Unfortunately, I do not have this maxed out at the moment, but I can demonstrate a little bit for you. So we have some enemies right here. And if you notice, I'm not using any abilities, and I don't have that source at the bottom. But if we keep on tagging enemies, we don't have that there. Let me try again. Laboratory, spawn Vulgus. Let's try this again. But it does work. Just a very small chance at the moment. There we go. Just using your first ability, we got one resource. And again, if with the max, it might be good, but there you go. It does work. So the devs might need to patch it, or this is not supposed to happen, but that mod works. So there you go. All right, now that we're in a mission, let's go ahead and show you how I do an opener. So I'm going to do is to press my 1, here's my 2, here's my 3, and then here's my 4. So what I'm going to do now is try to get my meter up as quick as possible. So let's zip over here. So every time I land a shot, I'm getting my meter up. And if you notice, we have 2 bunnies here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be trying to keep my mana regen ability up for the most part for our bunnies. So we're just going to keep here, get our buff one more time. And then what I'm going to do is I'm wait for my cooldown for my third ability, so then I can give them the buff right here. So now you see there's like a circle around them. That means they had the 2 times mana regen. I'll give them a attack buff right here, and just pretty much go on like that. So you want to get your cooldowns, keep them going. So there, as you can see, I'm sort of missing some of the things as I'm going, but as long as you're like pressing at least once or twice during between each of the segments, you should be fine to keep your buffs going. So I'm just getting my meter up again. All right, now I'm going to buff again. The bunny should have gotten it. All right, and there we go. All right, now we're in a boss fight, and here's how you would do it with this one. Pretty much the same thing. I want to get to my 4th ability real quick, so I'm just going to pop this one, and then I'm going to get my 4th ready, because then I'm wanting to go into more of a damage buff side of things. So as soon as my bar gets full, now I'm going to buff them, so then they can shred much faster, like so. But yeah, same principle applies for the other harder bosses. Is just you want to get your 2 times buff as quick as possible to melt. Or if people are saying, hey, I need more MP, just do that. All right, so let's talk about Luna now that we've talked about her kit and all that, and what my thoughts are on her. I personally love her, and I enjoy playing with her because I have a support mindset, and so doing those little mini games while trying to figure out buzz, sort of pre-planning, sort of comes second nature to me. But I personally have been saying this on my streams as well, is that I feel that Luna is not going to be a popular Descendant to play with, because a lot of people, one, they don't like doing the min-maxing thing, but also 2, they don't like supporting, and it's just there's a lot to micromanage, and a lot of people don't like that. So I see that she will be sort of on the bottom of the list of how many players will be using her. Her utility is very impressive. The MP regeneration, ability power, and cooldowns is just really good, but I just see that she's not going to be played much because of her skill ceiling. And I personally don't have an issue with it, but I think that there's not a lot of people are going to be playing her as much. So you might find some niche Luna players, but for the most part, I don't think she's going to be used as much unless there's someone who's very skilled on it. But overall, I think she's a solid character. I don't think she's useless. I don't think she needs any buffs or nerfs at the current time, but I've not tried her damage builds because I haven't gotten there yet. But overall, I'll say she's a solid character, and if you want to try her and you're a support main character with that mindset, I would suggest trying her out. Highly recommend. Thanks for watching, and have a good rest of your day.